Okay. Andrew, you want any other shots?
I'll get one once it's in the two. All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Okay. You want to see the?
Oh yeah, looks good. Okay. The 6-pack.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. I need to get me one of those shirts.
Well, it was, as with everything, surprisingly cheap on Amazon. It's like, I think it might have shipped directly from China.
I had an idea.
Kind of like those car seats.
Just get a bunch of different sizes of those shirts that have like the suit on them with the tie.
Oh yeah.
And then I could just give one to everybody who comes in the tub. And we could look semi-professional.
So, do you take it out of the goose to drink, or do you just drink it from the goose?
I usually take it out,
Okay.
if you can. I mean, it doesn't matter either way. It's more fun if you leave it in, I suppose. This one I gotta be careful with though, because this guy's a little tipsy. Sorry guys, we're getting some pictures taken before we get started. You ever been on a podcast that takes place in a hot tub?
John, I've not, and I'm a hot tub fan, and I'm excited about it, and I appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely.
And looking forward to chatting with you and meeting your audience, and hopefully people find value out of it. But
I hope so. I'm sure they will. The hard part's going to be I'm going to have to, like, when I did Bill's, I was clipping so many different things because there were so many knowledge bubbles, as I call them, in the TubPreneurs community being dropped, and I'm sure yours is going to be just the same. So,
well, Bill is an incredible leader. I used to work out with Bill at the CrossFit gym, and he's just an inspirational guy to be in the physical and emotional and spiritual shape that he's in.
Oh yeah.
And I know he's inspired a lot of people in our community, and so
Absolutely.
that he was a great guest.
All right, welcome to TubPreneurs, everybody. I am super excited this week. I, of course, am your host, John Uplager with Vision Consulting, helping businesses identify and communicate their values and visions so that they can move forward with velocity toward their goals. I'm joined in the tub this week by Matt Bulloch, the CEO of TentCraft. And super excited to talk about how he's been able to scale the business to, you have over 100 employees now, don't you?
Yeah, we're a little bit north of 80 full-time, but then we do have some seasonals, and these are high school students, college students, or folks that are looking for part-time work or just seasonal work that help us out in our busy months.
That's awesome. So for the folks that don't know at home, can you kind of give a 10,000 foot view of what TentCraft does?
I certainly can. John, do you want me to look at you or at the
Either or is
camera?
fine.
So TentCraft, we are a manufacturer of outdoor advertising supplies. So pre-COVID, the primary product was a tent with a logo on it. So a marketing tent, a tent for mobile events, for Bank of America sponsoring the Chicago Marathon, and they want a branded Bank of America tent every mile to give out water or to host their VIPs. So some sort of sponsorship activation. With COVID, almost 100% of our work for about a year and a half switched to the medical realm because there weren't a lot of live events happening, and there was just a massive demand for medical tents, for COVID screening tents, a few vaccination tents, a lot of community health department or health organization tents. So now we're back to a mix of a little bit of medical, and the events are starting to come back.
Okay. Is there a big difference when you're doing medical as far as outside of what you're putting on the tent? Is there anything else different that you have to do?
That's a good question. Our medical orders really featured our largest tents. So we have an 8x4 meter, which is a 13x26.
Okay.
And so this became really popular as a drive-through COVID testing tent when early in the pandemic, when everyone wanted to get tested and no one wanted to go indoors to a doctor's office or into the hospital. And so to put some numbers to it, which I don't have the exact numbers, but that biggest size in 2019, we sold less than 20 of them. I think it was 16.
Okay.
And then in 2020, we sold 1,100. And so,
a little bit of a change.
A little bit of a change. And because we are a U.S. manufacturer, which I'm very proud of, we buy aluminum extrusion at length, and then we cut it in whatever size we need.
Okay.
And so we were able to, for us, we didn't really care if it was a 10 by 10 tent, which is normally the most common size, or a 13 by 26. We just cut the aluminum into different lengths,
Yeah.
and then put it together a little bit differently. But that ability to manufacture to order really is what saved us and what caused a lot of our competitors to really struggle.
And TentCraft is a national company, or are you guys international now?
By Andrew Dodson. Andrew Dodson.
Thanks, Andrew.
The TentCraft content marketing manager who came to get some pictures of this beauty. This is La Vida Loca, and then Trust, which is a TentCraft guiding principle.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about those too.
So we sell nationally, a little bit to the Caribbean islands, not really South America, and a little bit to Canada, but primarily the U.S.
Okay, perfect. So obviously you guys have a large business. Now, if I remember correctly, you kind of came into the company 7 years ago. Is that right?
It was longer. It was 15.
15. Okay. I can't remember why I was thinking 7, but tell me about that journey as you kind of, what did you come into? What was it when you started? And how have you turned it into the international success that you have now?
Well, John, I can give the 2-minute version or the 5-minute version. What
5
are you
minute
looking
works
for?
great, man.
Okay, so I took my time going through college, and I ended up enlisting in the Army National Guard. And I think this will tie into some of the core value discussions. But September 11th happened, and I had always been interested in the military, and really felt like I grew up with every opportunity this country had to offer. My dad had a good job. We were able to take the family vacation every year. Went to a public school, but a good public school.
Yep.
And I really liked the idea of the citizen soldier. And I was at the University of Virginia, which was founded by Thomas Jefferson. And Jefferson spoke a lot about, for a state that's free and hopes to remain free, a well-regulated militia is its best defense.
Yep.
And John Stuart Mill, political philosopher, said, war is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. Far worse is the decayed and depraved state of mind that thinks nothing is worth fighting for.
Mm.
And so I enlisted in the National Guard, thinking that it would be the reserves, that very unlikely that I would be called up. And my unit in Virginia was called up when I was about halfway through basic training. So I was at basic training knowing that I was going to be sent somewhere, and not being sure where, which made basic training a lot more real for me. And so I ended up taking that year off school mandatorily. You can't say, actually, I'd rather be in college. It's like when the unit goes, you go.
Yep.
And spend a year in Guantanamo Bay. And the way the National Guard works is there's one set of benefits when you're just a National Guard soldier, but when you spend 6 months on active duty, then all the benefits flip. So you get the maximum tuition assistance, you get the maximum GI Bill,
Yep.
And when you're deployed, you're getting paid, and not a lot. I'm a E3, a private first class in the Army, but you have no expenses. Your housing's paid for, your food is paid for. You're buying candy bars and Gatorade and beer. That's it. And so I did a year of active duty service, and then I came back and had this revelation that a lot of my friends were graduating. But I said, well, why would I ever graduate college? Like, I love college, and now everything was completely paid for because the Army at that point had taken out some of the debt that I had.
Yeah.
And then was paying, between the mix of the federal and the state tuition assistance, was paying 100% of my tuition. And I effectively had a job because that 1 week in a month and 2 weeks in the summer, you had to drill, and you're being paid for that. So, financially, and this is one of the benefits of the military, they're just ways to really get college 100% paid for.
Yeah.
And so I took as long as I could going through college, finally graduated and got a job in New York. And I worked with Paul Britton's stepson. So
Okay.
my friend from UVA and then from New York, we worked at the same bank, was a gentleman named Justin Nance. And Justin is Paul's stepson. And Paul Britton, for anyone that is watching from remote, owns a great company in Traverse City, 300-ish employees. They're a large format digital printer. So they do everything from billboards to NASCAR.
Yeah, huge.
And Paul had a number of clients in New York, and Paul and his family just really liked New York. So Paul would come to town pretty frequently. And he's kind of a wild man entrepreneur, a lot of fun. And he would always invite Justin and Justin's friends out for dinner and drinks. And he'd always pick up the tab. He started his company in college. And one night, over some beverages, he asked me, he said, well, how do you like Wall Street? And I said, I hate it. I'm working my butt off. I work with a bunch of jerks. My apartment, it is too small. It's too expensive. And I just didn't see myself in New York long term.
Right.
And so Paul came back and he said, well, what do you really want to do? And I'd always been interested in doing something entrepreneurial. And I told Paul, it's like, well, I've been really inspired listening to your story, and I would love to do something entrepreneurial. And I had some ideas from franchising a restaurant, a chain that was on the West Coast but not the East Coast, to doing, maybe some marketing consulting or online marketing. And Paul got in touch with me a few weeks later, and he said, listen, there's a great product. It's a tent. It's a page in my catalog, and my team doesn't want to touch it. At this point, my VP of manufacturing says tents are a distraction. My VP of sales says tents are non-core. This is never going to work. And so they don't want to do it, and I have all this inventory. So if you really want to do something entrepreneurial, it will be your company. I'll bankroll it, and we can help with the printing. And so to me at that time, it seemed like an entrepreneurial opportunity with the upside of owning my own company. But then the downside was that it didn't work. And at that point, it wasn't any of my money. And I thought I could just go back to New York and get another job. This was before the financial crash.
Yep.
Or I had a friend that was teaching English in Korea, and he was having a blast. And traveling every weekend, and you get your housing paid for, and I guess you teach English, but you're very well respected in Korean society. And so that was a fallback plan. Or I thought I could go back and get an MBA. Because I thought I'd have a pretty good profile with the military, then 2 years of banking, 2 or 3 years of a startup, and I thought I could just go to get an MBA and then figure out what was next.
Yeah.
And so Paul and I structured I just want to make sure my cigar stays
You're good.
lit. So Paul structured an option agreement where when I got the company to a certain net income level, I could buy in at the original valuation, and then he would finance it. And so it was basically a way to kind of protect both of ourselves, where it's still 100% his company, but if I came on and was able to grow it, then I could be a partner with him. And so I hit that at the end of year 2, actually along with another guy that we brought on that didn't end up staying with the company. And so I became a 24% partner in 2009, and then went up to be a 40% partner. So I bought an additional 16%. Then I went to be a 49% partner. And so Paul was selling me equity as I went. And then we signed a buy-sell agreement that we ultimately triggered in 2015 to where I could buy Paul's 51% interest, and we would be an independent company, and then Paul financed it. And so at that point, we had grown enough to where I could have borrowed the money from a bank, and I had offers for financing, but I thought Paul had been a great partner, and if I was going to pay interest to anyone, I'd rather pay interest to Paul, and I thought that Paul would be more flexible if we needed it.
Sure.
Which he was. Originally, it was a 5-year note, and we had been growing a lot, and I thought, if we just kept going up and to the right, we'd be able to make the payments. Not really appreciating that people buy houses on a 30-year mortgage, and so to buy 51% of a company over 5 years just consumed a lot of cash.
Yeah.
And so I did end up asking Paul for a 6th year, and we restructured the note just so we could not be running along that tightrope and barely making the payments to Paul and paying the taxes without any excess capital to invest in new products or to hire people or to really take some new shots. So I got Paul paid off in 2020, and we have a great relationship, and it's a big market out there, and I think it's been just a big success story, and I'm very indebted to Paul.
Yeah, and there's so much a lot of our listeners probably don't know TentCraft, but being around the local Traverse City area, they really are held in high esteem. They've got a great culture over there. As a matter of fact, I was talking with one of your employees a couple weeks back, and he was just raving about how great the culture is. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about that, because obviously as you start to grow a company, and you've really over the last 15 years, I mean, when you first got started, you basically had inventory.
Yep.
And you had some help with the payroll, which is always a good thing to have, but you probably didn't have a lot of employees, right, I'm guessing. And now you've grown it to something where you have 80 plus full-time employees, 30 plus part-time employees, and you're really growing it in a big way. And again, that culture stands out. So as you think about culture and how you were able to create a space where not only people wanted to show up to work every day, but they were the right people and the people that you actually wanted in the right seats, How did you go about doing that?
So, John, I appreciate the question. It's a great question. I could probably talk about it for the whole podcast. So at any point, you can give me the hand signal or blink twice, and I'll shut up and let you. You know, what is it? Blink twice if you're in trouble.
Well, we'll go blink twice. Yeah.
Okay. But you know, there were a few principles that I had going into it, and I really truly did hate my job in New York, and it was people were jerks. A lot of the work I did I thought was pretty pointless. They didn't communicate with us, where I would maybe be working for hours and hours on an analysis that, you know, I thought one of the senior bankers needed for a customer, only to find out that something changed. They knew it. They'd moved in a different direction, and I was basically working on this pointless project. And I can't tell you how many times that happened.
Yeah.
Where I'm working late at night and it's hard and it's stressful, and then it ended up just 100% not being needed. And so if I was going to do the startup, and if I was going to try to have my own company, like I wanted to have a company that just wasn't soul crushing and brutal. And my roommate at the time, who works for a hedge fund now, he worked at a different bank, and he had kind of the opposite perspective. He said, like, no, work sucks. Like, you work hard. That's why they pay you for it. That's why they call it work. He's like, you just, you know, if you're being compensated fairly, like, you just do whatever they want you to do, and that's kind of all there is to it. And some people do have that perspective, but I thought there were some cultural things that I could do to make work a little bit less miserable, and to try to give meaning to people's work, to try to pay people fairly and reward people when the company does well. I really do believe that when the company does well, everyone should benefit. And so we you know, every year that we've been able to, you know, we tried to do increases and then profitability based bonuses that in the past 2 years, with, you know, lower staffing and then big revenue, have been really significant, you know, up to 15% of an employee's base wage.
Wow.
So, you know, we have people that, you know, are you know, at entry level type positions that made $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 at their bonus. And I'm really proud of that, because the company did well, and they get to have a great Christmas or take their family on a trip, because I couldn't do it without them.
Right.
So there was a little bit of a conceptual bent where I didn't just want to do it how I felt that the New York banks did it, how the senior people benefited, everyone else was just a grunt, and you were disposable, and they'd cycle you out, you know, maybe even before they knew your name if the business required it. I wanted to try to build something durable, and I wanted to try to build something that would be fun and something that I could be proud of. And on the culture, I'll tell you, you know, after being in New York and going to University of Virginia and having my military experience, like when the company started, I really did, and I don't know if it was arrogance or not knowing, like in the back of my mind, I really did think that I could probably do everyone's job better than them. So I was spending a lot of time selling, but when someone else made a mistake or something didn't go smoothly, if it was client services or if it was in production or an address was wrong in shipping, you know, I would get frustrated because I thought, like, well, I wouldn't have made that mistake, and why can't these people, you know, just do what I want them to do? And I don't think it was that stark, but I just had this like little bit in the back of my mind where it's like, I thought, like, you know, this is my company, and everyone else, you know, needs to step up. And when the company really started to grow, so we kind of grew to, you know, we grew to 7 or 8 employees, then we grew to 10 employees, and then we had kind of hit a plateau around 15 employees. And when we really started to grow is when I took a step back and realized that our team could do everything much better than I could do. And our sewers were professionals. They had years of experience. They're doing the best that they can, and they know a whole lot more about sewing than I know. And sometimes stuff just goes sideways. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes material has a flaw in it. Sometimes something gets caught in the sewing machine. And so one of the kind of the cliches I've tried to instill at TentCraft is that, like, it's okay to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, but let's make different mistakes, because if we're making the same mistake time after time after time, we probably have a problem either with the process or the person. And 98.7% of the time, it's a problem with the process. And, you know, if the machine was jamming, let's go, you know, and causing a flaw in the product, like, let's go a step deeper. Like, why is the machine jamming? Well, the thread's getting caught. It's a lean technique called the 5 whys.
Yes.
To try to peel the onion and get to the root of a problem. It's like, well, the tent's getting messed up. Why is it getting messed up? Well, the machine jammed. Okay, why did the machine jam? Well, the thread is binding up. Why did the thread bind up? Well, it turns out that we're not lubricating it as we should, and one of the bobbins has a little barb on it, right? And so, but by asking the right questions, a lot of times you can get to the root of an issue. Because I think most people really do want to do a good job, and most people do want to take pride in their work, and most people do want to get an A and want to be recognized for their hard work. And sometimes companies and TentCraft in the past, I think, didn't really clearly communicate what that looked like. And I also think we didn't empower people to take enough ownership to really fix a lot of the problems themselves. And so it was a really important step in my leadership journey to kind of take the step back, say, I don't know if I should use names, but person that's been with us for 10, like, is doing a great job, is trying, and my job is to support him and make sure that he has the tools he needs, make sure that he has the team around him to be successful, and the right equipment and clear information, right? I mean, if the production team's trying to start a job and there's half-baked information from the sales team and we're not sure what the art is, but we want them to start making a white tent and we'll get the art later, and then invariably it changes to a green tent and everyone's pissed off, but it's like, we didn't set them up to succeed. And there really is some give and take when you're running a company, and teamwork is just so crucially important that I have my role to do some public facing things, to help with recruiting where I can, to worry about the overall financial picture, to deal with the banks. But as far as managing the day-to-day activities of the sales team is better than I am. I have a VP of sales who's great. There are two team leaders, Steve and Tyler, that work with Tom, and they have the day-to-day absolutely covered. Like it does not help. It only makes things worse. If I storm over to a salesperson's desk and want to know about a job or why they did something where I have zero of the context, I don't know the conversations they have with the customers, and it's kind of one of the most counterintuitive things about growing a company is that, like, as the company grows, just by nature, you have to step back and you have to relinquish control. And if you're a control freak, that's a battle that you have to lose eventually, or the company is never going to go beyond you doing everything.
There are so many nuggets in what you just said, and I love it. So many knowledge bubbles, as I like to call them. Yeah. And I hope you guys really listen to what he's talking about, because one of the first things he brought up was the fact that what you do should matter, and he's working to create a culture where what the employees do on a day-to-day basis actually matters to something bigger. And this is something that's super huge within culture. And then, Matt, I love that you talked on the idea of empowering people too, because I've seen a lot of times where entrepreneurs, they want to grow this business, they want to make it something that they don't have to be as involved in and everything. And a lot of times it gets hard for them because as they start to grow, they have to start relinquishing control. They have to start giving up things. And I've seen it time and time again. I struggled with this, and I wasn't even the owner of a cleaning company that I ran. I was general manager, but I saw all the time where, what the heck, man? Why are we making these mistakes? Yada, yada, yada. And I love what you said, because at the end of the day, it's not so much about, hey, let's make a culture or a team where mistakes are never made. It's let's make sure we're not making the same mistake. So if we make a mistake, how can we fix it? I love the 5 whys, drilling down and actually figuring it out. That's so great. And you've talked a little bit about this lean program, as you called it. And this was actually how, when I first met you, you were talking on this lean program. So can you talk a little bit about what that is specifically and how that's helped within your business? Absolutely.
So the one other point I'll make where you talked about the mistakes and you honed in on it, and this is where, is there a problem with the person, their process? Let's say someone didn't clean, I don't know if it was commercial, someone didn't clean a conference room how you would have done it. Did they have a standard? Did they know you're supposed to take out the trash, you have to wipe the table, you need to dust the lights, you need to wash the dry erase board? Because if not, a lot of stuff is just subjective, right? Yep. You can walk in and say, well, that's totally clean, and you walk in and say, this place is a mess because there's a speck of lint in the middle of the table that I thought was completely fine. And this is where, I think people do want to do a good job, and it really is up to the managers to make clear expectations. And a lot of times that's documenting it, because then as you scale, if you have 15 different cleaners cleaning 15 different ways, following 15 different kind of sets of rules, it just never works. And I hated it in the military, and I thought it was so lame how there was kind of a process for everything, right? Where in your Foot Locker, where your shoes were supposed to be, and where your shirt's supposed to be, and where your LBV, which I don't even think they use anymore. Your load-bearing vest is supposed to be. But now I understand that it's the only way to run an organization with hundreds of thousands of people, where new people are coming in, people are going out to a unit in Hawaii or in Germany or in the Middle East. And if everyone just does stuff the same way and there's a standard, when there's a standard, then you can hold people accountable to that.
Yep.
And so it happened in the military, and I kind of glossed over it and rebelled against it. And then running my own manufacturing business, I really understand the value. I'll give you one more. I promise I will talk about lean, but we use these dollies. Darn it! You want to try to sweep it out?
It's fine.
Sorry about
I'll
that.
clean it out later. It's my fault.
So we had some ash in the hot tub, which as a hot tub lover and fellow owner is never what you want, but you know it's solvable. So we use these hand carts, dollies like movers use, hand trucks to get the tents around, and they were never where people thought they would be. And so if I've got 20 people that might need to use tents around, and each person spends 5 minutes every day looking for a hand truck because maybe John used it and left it on the loading dock, and then someone else helped a customer and they left it by the front door, and then someone else thought they would need it later in the day, so they left at their station. The amount of waste, which is a key point in lean, it just compounds over time. And so if you number your hand trucks and you say, hey, hand truck number here, hand truck number 1 goes here, and when you're done with it, put it back. And you put the number 1 on the hand truck, you tape off the number 1 on the ground. Mm-hmm. It seems silly, it seems control freakish, but then everyone knows that you've got 4 hand trucks. When you use them, you put them back. If you don't put yours back, someone will say, hey, John, what are you doing? It's supposed to go back there.
Yep.
And then no one else spends 5 minutes of their day looking for a hand truck and then leaving it wherever they want. And so the cumulative power of having a better process ends up making a big difference for the business.
And this ties directly into the lean program.
It does.
As I heard you describe it, this idea of standard operating policies and procedures.
Totally.
And making sure that everything's organized. So as you guys were working on this, you're implementing this lean. Go ahead and talk about what that created as far as the culture and what the lean really is about.
So lean, as I understand it, and sometimes the origin stories can be a little fuzzy, right? Because sometimes people say, oh, well, it really started back then. But the lean that I was introduced to was really an offshoot of the Toyota production system. And I imagine I may be older than some of your listeners, but in the 80s, Toyota had this reputation. Toyota was eating Detroit's lunch. In Detroit, they were producing crappy cars with crappy reliability, and Toyota came out and Honda and the Japanese automakers were producing reliable cars for less money, and just really were taking the quality to another level.
Yeah.
And so they had developed this Toyota production system, and lean, as I've been introduced to it, and please feel free to fact check me, and my version may not be 100% correct, but maybe hopefully it's 60% correct. Lean originated from the Toyota production system, and so lean at its root is all about the systematic elimination of waste, and there's waste everywhere. And so there are 8 foundational wastes in lean, and I won't bore you with all of them, but I encourage you to Google the 8 wastes of lean. And there are wastes like transportation or movement, right? If I'm working with a hammer and my hammer is stored 30 feet away, and every time during the day, I walk 30 feet to get the hammer, I walk to use it, I walk 30 feet to put the hammer back, I walk to use it. So that's a movement. Defects are a waste. And so if you think about my business, tents with logos, if a tent gets all the way through production and then a salesperson comes down and says, hey, that's the wrong logo, that went through our client services team, that went through our art team, that went through the digital print team. We have big digital printers. That went through cutting, that went through sewing, that went through quality assurance, right? And everyone in production didn't know that they were working on the wrong thing, but it wasn't what the customer wanted, so it's a defect. So all that needs to be done over.
Yeah.
So defects is a massive waste, or overproduction is a waste. And so if we need 10 tent walls, that's a product that we sell a lot of, and the printers say, you know what, a lot of times the print walls get messed up, so just print 15, and if we print 15, we'll probably get 10 good ones, and then we won't have to come and reset it again. Instead of digging in and saying, okay, why why do we think we need to print 5 extra to get 10 good ones, right? Is the machine not being maintained? Does the printer need a new head? Is there a problem with the ink? Are we not sure about the art? And so it just encourages you to observe these wastes, these 8 wastes, and then figure out systematically how to start to eliminate them. And there are a number of analogies I love about lean, but lean really is a journey. You know, you're never done.
Right.
It's a continuous game. You've never arrived. And lean is about incremental changes. And there's some tools that are more powerful that focus on systematic changes. Where I think TentCraft has done well is on this idea of incremental changes. And if you can have every employee make tiny changes every week or every month or every quarter, and you know, if I have 100 people that make 100 changes 4 times a year, at the end of the year, I'm gonna have 400 changes. And so it's not like lean, you know, you agree to start your lean journey and a lightning bolt hits your company and everything
Right.
is better. Lean is about individual employees making changes in their areas of expertise, because we have given them the tools to observe waste, and then we've also empowered them to go ahead and fix it themselves.
And that word empowerment really stuck out to me even before you said it. I was thinking, man, you're empowering your team to find better ways to do what really they're great at.
Yeah, and I'll use this example, which I used when we first met. Our company manufactures the tent frames, right? And we have a saw that I've never used. We have 3 CNC machines that I've never run, and so we have a machining team and trained machinists that run these machines all day, every day. John, there's a 0% chance that I'm ever going to be able to walk down to the CNC machine and tap Bruce on the shoulder and say, hey, Bruce, I was looking at that program that you wrote, and I think if you do a 17% angle with a different tool, that would be faster. I literally don't know how to do it. I have no idea how to do Bruce's job better than he does it. I need Bruce, and what I can do as the owner and as the president, all I can do is create a culture where Bruce gives a shit. Are we allowed to say 4-letter words?
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll try to stay away from the F word, but all I can do is try to create a culture where Bruce feels like he's part of the team, where Bruce understands why we're working hard. He understands what the customers expect. He understands that we're more expensive than the competition, so it does have to be perfect. And where he wants to make the improvements, you know, and whether that's he innately wants it or I've required 4 improvements per year, which they kind of go hand in hand. But then Bruce feels hopefully empowered and says, you know what, this is taking too long, it keeps messing up, I'm going to try a carbide bit as opposed to this hardened steel bit, I'm going to try a different tool, I'm going to try a different program, I'm going to talk to the engineering team, and then Bruce can make that improvement and the company gets better. And this is so important that, you know, a company, 2 related thoughts, a company is just a group of people, right? You talk about TentCraft, there are 100 people that work there. You talk about General Motors, there are, I don't even know. Now I'm going to sound like a dolt.
Thousands, probably.
200,000 people that work at General Motors, but they're all people. They all have families and wishes and dreams and aspirations. And so a company's just a group of people. And when people make the company better, the company gets better. You know, this idea of the company in the third person, well, the company is going to fix this problem, or the managers can't fix anything. The company can't do anything. The company is a legal entity that lives on our banking documents. The company is a group of people, and we're organized in a certain way to try to add value, which is a lean principle for our customers.
Yes, exactly. And I love this because if you go back to some of our previous podcasts on here, you're going to hear Dr. Kyle did a great job of describing this. And this is exactly what Matt's talking about, is your employees really are your biggest asset. And
agree 100%. Say that again, John.
Your employees are your biggest asset.
And your biggest asset walks out the door every single day at the end of their shift. And so if you're not being proactive about trying to make it a place that doesn't suck and trying to make it a place where people feel valued and people feel that they're being compensated fairly, then you don't have any leg to stand on when people leave to go somewhere else, especially in this age of remote work. It's like it is incumbent on managers to create a workforce environment that is welcoming and where people are empowered. And then, that's what it's all about. Like, people make the company better.
We're going to pause for 1 second here. Slight issue with the video. I apologize, guys.
How could you tell there was an issue? Oh, you're watching that. I'm going to cool off for man. No.
I'm there in the problem here. Hold on 1 second, guys. me get this going again, guys. Sorry.
John, you do have a complicated setup, right? No one else is ambitious as you.
I know.
So I love it.
There is my audio. And that. You know, I think I'm just going to use this laptop, honestly. Huge and more power, but I have to get a Thunderbolt cable. Come out here. You probably know all about this.
I do think you only need that end.
Well, yeah. I need to come out here and plug everything into it and send it all back to my computer. Well, right now this is just an Ethernet. But I need something. That's what I'm saying. I need something that can transfer all of. You know, I could put a dock on the end of it and power everything. All right, I think we're golden. You ready to hop back in? All right, guys, sorry about that. We'll cut that out of the video so you never even knew it would happen, or had happened, unless you're watching closely. This is why I prefer to have that up, is so
yeah.
I can actually
So
see
you know.
what's going on.
Cool.
So,
Hey everyone, we're back. So lean, transform, TentCraft, and I think that word is probably overused, kind of like synergies, and everything is transformative. But one other thought on lean that I'll give you that John you've heard is that there's a great book called 2 Second Lean by Paul Akers, who's kind of one of my mentors on this lean journey. And his definition of lean, he boils it down to say lean is all about fixing what bugs you. And so, you can look for these 8 wastes, but lean is this philosophy and this mindset of empowering employees to fix what bugs you.
Love it.
And so that's an operational definition of lean that really resonated with me.
Absolutely, and that's so cool with that thing with thinking about lean that way. The other part of it I know too, and I don't know if this was lean so much, but you touched on this with your shirt actually. You said trust. One of our guiding principles is trust. Can you talk a little bit about what these guiding principles are and how you kind of came to come up with them and formulate them as a company and why?
Totally. So I, at one point, and when we spoke about your friend that isn't a big believer in guiding principles, and I honestly felt the same way. I thought guiding principles were something that big companies did, that were just words on the wall that no one really cared about, and that it was something that, consultants came up to charge a lot of money and just kind of push them down on people.
We do charge a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's true. But...
that was not anyway, there was no message or no ding in that, but I had a mentor that had run a larger company, and he asked me the question. He said, well, if you don't articulate what type of employees you're looking for and what type of behaviors you expect, how are you ever going to hold people accountable? Just like we talked about with kind of the standards on cleaning. And so he said, you have to articulate like what is important to you, and then you need to hire and you need to manage, and in some cases you need to cycle people out of the company if they're not upholding these principles. And so when we came up with our guiding principles, we involved the whole company, which we were at that point probably 30 or 40 people, so we could, so whether it's the whole company or whether it's a group of senior leaders, we very intentionally called them guiding principles and not core values. And it's a little bit of semantics, but some people, for example, their religion may be the most important thing to them, or their family, very rightly might be the most important thing to them, and that is really core. And so we call them guiding principles. And how I define that is these are the agreements that we make to each other and the behaviors we expect to enable someone to be successful at TentCraft. And I'm shocked, John, that I didn't mention earlier, because it's normally how I start like any conversation, but my favorite management technique is to R&D. And the traditional definition of R&D is research and development. So anyone in manufacturing or a lot of different businesses, if you say R&D, would say research and development. There's another definition that I heard.
Rip off and duplicate?
Rip off and duplicate.
I love it.
Right, rip off and duplicate. So if someone else has figured something out, if Haggerty, another great company in Traverse City, has figured out just a great policy on maternity leave, like why would we start from a blank page? Let's get Haggerty's policy, look at it, and then make it our own. And I think that's just such a powerful time-saving hack. But so our 5 of our guiding principles, we have 6. I've heard feedback, that you really shouldn't have more than like 4 or 5 or 6, and so we take 6, and they're quote unquote generic, but I don't say that in a negative way. So we'll see if I can get them. So our guiding principles are trust, excellence, respect, teamwork, communication. So those are the kind of standard ones. And then the 6th one is one that I just blatantly R&D'd from Zappos, the online shoe company, which is fun and a little weirdness. And so, communication, trust, respect, excellence, and just communication.
And then I think you should
teamwork.
keep the fun
Teamwork.
Oh, teamwork.
And then fun and a little weirdness.
And I love the fun and a little weirdness, because I think it really gives an identity to culture in a different way than just the corporate buzzwords. And I think when you showed up here, you had a little bit of that fun and a little weirdness. You're wearing a pretty fun shirt.
Thank you.
You showed me he didn't wear them in the tub today, although I think he could have got away with it. But his marketing team had actually given him TentCraft booty shorts. I mean, for lack of a better
No,
term.
they're booty shorts. It's like a spandex Brazilian cut that some 22-year-old Brazilian soccer player probably looks amazing in. I wanted to spare you all seeing that, but I do appreciate it from the marketing team, and I'm sure that these multicolored shorts will come to a beach or pool near you, but I wasn't going to do it on John's podcast.
So as you're coming up with these guiding principles and you're figuring this out as a company, and now you've instituted these 6 things, how did that affect hiring? How did it affect how you approached going to your, I guess I would call it disciplinary for your team, and then ultimately maybe inviting people to succeed elsewhere?
Totally.
How did that affect that?
So not everyone is going to be into it, right? And when we first established these guiding principles, some people said, you know what, like that's not really what I'm into. Like, I just want to show up to work. I want to do my work. I don't want to have to communicate. I don't necessarily want to work in a team. And when we said, okay, well, this is what we're going to be about, and I believe in this, and this is what we're going to do moving forward, it allows people to kind of self-select in or self-select out. And so when we're hiring, our guiding principles are everywhere. They're all over our walls. We talk about them. Some of our scorecards, both on annual reviews and in hiring, is to kind of give scores. And it's not, it's not an SAT score, it's not an ACT score, and it's not completely deterministic, but you can do a really simple, like 1 to 3. 3 is someone would just absolutely excel in our culture, which is comprised of our guiding principles. And 2 is like, I think they'd be fine. And 1 is like, I really think this person would struggle. Like, someone doesn't want to trust, or someone doesn't want to be excellent. They don't care, whatever, slap it out. And so since the company instituted these guiding principles, I'm 100% certain, there's no doubt in my mind, that I can fit any positive or negative employee interaction into a guiding principle. Someone took initiative and reached out to a supplier and made a change. That is demonstrating excellence. That's demonstrating teamwork. That's demonstrating communication. And then on the flip side, when things go sideways, we have basically a report card of saying, hey, this is what we value. There was a violation of trust, and micromanaging is a great example, right? If a manager is micromanaging his team, people hate it, right? People revolt against it. It's a violation of trust, because part of growing the company is hiring people and trusting them. It's a violation of teamwork. It's a violation of excellence. Like, it just violates everything. And there are just so many examples. Like, I would challenge someone, I challenge you viewers, maybe in the comments, to come up with an employee situation that I can't fit into one of those 6 categories of our guiding principles.
Well, and that's really what it's supposed to be. Whether you call them guiding principles or core values or whatever, you have to look at it in such a way that these are the things that we are going to use to help our team know those expectations.
Preach.
As you talk
Amen.
about it, and help them to grow in those areas. And at the end of the day, not everybody really likes it. And I saw this time and time again in the cleaning company, especially as we started to implement these core values. I was able to look at it and go, shoot, I've got this person who is really excellent at cleaning, but man, they just don't fit the core values of the company.
Yep.
And you have to make those decisions sometimes of going to them. Always give people, I find it's always best to start with assuming that you didn't communicate something well to them and going to them and setting those expectations out for them.
Preach.
And see if they can switch. If they can't, at that point, that conversation becomes really easy of saying, hey, you're a great worker, but I don't think this is the right culture for you. And, I'll happily write a letter of recommendation for your work if you want to go succeed elsewhere, but it's not going to be here, kind of thing.
Totally. And I heard a phrase that I liked. Sometimes you need to release people into the market. And John, right now, we are in the lowest unemployment that we may ever see during our career. And it doesn't, TentCraft as a company, we're making tents, right? If someone doesn't work at TentCraft, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that we're a bad person. It doesn't mean that we figured everything out. It doesn't mean that they figured everything out. It just means that, like, the puzzle piece didn't fit. And what we're looking for, and a big part of what we're looking for, is a cultural fit. There are, John, I know you see this, there are 100 people that could do almost any job we post, right? And if that's nationwide, like, there are a lot of jobs that, there's an element where you need to show up, and just do it. But I'm looking for the employees that are going to, help it get better, right? That are going to improve the work. And some people, if they don't want to do it, like that's fine. And there are a lot of other companies where you can probably go and just show up and not think about it and not have your boss make you do goofy, improvement videos once a quarter. But it's what I'm all about. It's what brings me fulfillment. It's what I'm passionate about. And when you talk about culture, like I probably like tents more than anyone else. At least in this area. Tents have provided me a life that that I love with my family, and it pays my paycheck. But and I love our customers. I think our customers are cool. We work with advertising agencies where the customers have blue mohawks and brands that are starting up. So I love our customers. But I'm not passionate about tents. What I'm passionate about is this idea of empowering people and the culture and having a cool company culture in northern Michigan, as opposed to a dark, dirty, top-down manufacturing business where they say, you need to show up at 8 o'clock and you shut up and do what I tell you to do and get out of here when you're done. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want my life to be about that. I didn't want my company to be about that. And so for me, like the whole reason I get up in the morning is this culture aspect and this improving people and giving people maybe teaching people skills and for better or worse, a lot of people didn't have an opportunity to learn how to give feedback, right? Giving feedback is hard. Like telling someone that you work with, how they need to be better, that's difficult. Or how to receive feedback, right? Yep. How to receive feedback, and I still suck at it. And my team, does give me feedback, and I try to invite feedback. And I'll tell you, if
good or bad feedback, by the way, can be hard.
Good or bad feedback, but if someone wants to give me feedback on something that I could do better, and if all I do is get defensive and tell them why they're wrong, and I'm the boss and tell them why they don't know what's going on, I can guarantee they're not going to give me feedback again. And had a great example recently. I went to this conference in Florida. It was about digital printing, and I was so inspired. It was the best work conference I've ever been to. And I started off kind of furiously, jotting notes in the notepad, but my handwriting is terrible, and we use Slack and we use email, and I had my laptop, and so I was like, instead of notes, I'm just going to start firing off these messages. I'm going to say, hey Wendy, Laura, you need to look at this new material supplier, or Rob, I learned about this new HR technique, and Brett, my VP of manufacturing, who I'm very grateful to, also for how he helped us pivot during COVID. But he came back and said, hey, I just want to let you know that it's like, I know you were excited and I spent a lot of time with you, but he's like, people were spinning in circles while you were at this conference because the CEO sends them an email saying they need to look into this company. They have no context on, is that something I need to do right now? Do I need to drop everything else? Does he want me to switch suppliers? Does he want me to call them? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And I sent 20 Slacks or 20 emails, and I guess like everyone was running around like a chicken with their head cut off, and Brett had to say, it's a piece of information. Matt's at this conference, we'll catch up with Matt when he's back, and we'll figure out, what is really important. And he was right. Like none of this was stuff that needed to be dealt with in the moment. And I frankly thought I was being more efficient. I thought I was being more lean. It's like, instead of, writing it in the notepad and then later writing the email, I'll just write the email, right? And I was like, oh, this is great. Not fully realizing that it was spinning everyone else in circles and having the opposite effect, which was what I wanted to do was introduce our team to new ideas and new suppliers and new things that I thought, we could benefit from. But instead I was stressing people out and overwhelming them.
And this is a great point, by the way, Matt, because I saw this so much happen to myself as general manager and our owner, CEO as well, where we would communicate something out in our excitement, and the staff was like, oh my gosh, I got all this other stuff to do. I got this. They had no, for me, it might have been something like, hey, when you get a second, can you look at this? Might be good for us. Same with a lot of what the CEO
But they don't know. They don't know. You're the general manager, and when you send someone something, it's like, what? And they were probably fully busy for 40 or 50 hours a week. And so was this supposed to take their week to 60 hours, or was something else going to come off the list? And they don't know. They don't know.
And one of the things that I found really helpful when I was going through this, and Matt, you can tell me about your experience with this as well, was a lot of times when I would send those things out, I tried to get in the practice and the habit of giving them an idea of a time frame or importance. You know, so saying, hey, could you do this by this date, get this information for me, or check into this. And it helped them to be able to kind of look at it and go, okay, I know I have to have this completed by Thursday. It's currently Monday. I've got XYZ that's really important right now. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to take some time later on when it's not so crazy to look into this and put your full attention towards it.
Totally. And when I was, probably being a little manic at this conference, I kind of violated two systems that we have at TentCraft that work pretty well. And those systems are, I do monthly one-on-ones with everyone on my team. And there's some set questions. My first question is always open-ended. How are things going? And then I try to shut up, right? Because how are things going will just like elicit, a lot of, if I'm successful shutting up, you can get a lot of good information out of an open-ended question if you're willing to listen. But then we kind of go through our cadence, and then there's it's a Google Doc, so whoever I'm doing the one-on-one with can edit it, or I can edit it. But there's a list of discussion points, right? And what I should have done, I see now, I should have opened up the Google Doc and I should have added discussion points. And said, hey, this isn't critical, but I just learned about a new supplier. I learned about a new software. I've never heard of this before. We should talk about this and we should get an appointment, because at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday, when I'm at some conference in Florida and they're busting their butts back in Traverse City trying to ship, every job that needs to go this day, to have me tell them about a new supplier and have them not know a time frame, is counterproductive. And the other mistake that I made is that, we have this chain of command, and no person can have 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 people report directly to them. And I have vice presidents, and then they have team leads, and they have, what Brett calls his production, his PLT, his production leadership team. And I should have started it, because Brett, frankly, knows more about the materials than I do. And Wendy and Laura in supply chain know a whole lot more than Brett does. And what I should have done is added it to the discussion points, because it wasn't time sensitive. This is a long-term project, and I should have said, hey, I learned about this. I actually have been in this industry for 15 years. I actually think it's pretty cool. We should talk about this, or we should talk to this vendor. And then Brett could then say, and maybe it's like, oh, we tried them 2 years ago and I didn't know, because they were doing their job, right? It's like, it didn't work with our printers, but I should have followed our process and put it on our discussion points for a one-on-one, and then allowed them to do their job, which is manage their team and bring their people in, instead of going straight to, an employee that maybe hasn't even been there for that long, that they're getting the first email from me and they think they need to freaking drop everything for some, thing that I just heard about for 15 seconds.
Yeah, this is so true. And I hope you guys are really listening to what Matt's talking about, because as your business continues to grow and as you continue to systematize more and more things, you're going to have a leadership team structure there as well. And you want to utilize that heavily so that it can free you up to do the things that are really, at the end of the day, your core purpose in the business. Now,
I agree 100%. Like our shipping team is better at packaging things efficiently and dealing with the software and doing that stuff. And there's stuff that only I can do, and there's stuff that they're the expert at, and all I can do is freaking give them the tools and get out of their way.
Exactly.
Casey Cowell, local, entrepreneur and philanthropist, had actually invited me over for dinner, and it was awesome. It was so great. I was so honored to go over to Casey's house and cook this big dinner. And dinner ended and we were drinking wine, and one thing that I like to do at dinner parties is like, hey, well, can we help you clean up, right? Because that's the worst thing about dinner parties. Like, you come over and you have a great time, and then everyone leaves, and holy crap, you've got 10 sets of dishes and the kitchen's a mess, and then you're up all night. And so it's like, hey, can we help you clean up? And Casey, no, get out of here. You don't have to do that. And I was like, no, like, it'd be our pleasure. And there was one other couple that was still there, and so we're like, no, we can clear our plates. Like, where's the dishwasher? And Casey retreated. And he got a bottle of wine, great bottle of wine, and he turned on the music, and then Casey and his wife were dancing around the kitchen, and he said, one lesson that I learned, and he was more successful than I could ever hope to be. He said, never get in the way of the people actually doing the work. And so at that point, we were having fun, we were drinking wine, we were listening to music, it's cool. Like, I 100% can still have fun and talk and be friends and build relationships, like, while I'm helping, Casey clean up his kitchen. And I promise that when we left, the kitchen was in pretty good shape, right? The dishwasher was loaded. We'd wipe the surfaces. We'd hand wash some stuff. We all had more fun. We all had a little bit more wine, and then they could go to bed. And so, but what Casey said, he's just a treasure and a gift to the community with all that he's done. Never get in the way of the people doing the work, and that's so true. And I got in the way of the people doing the work, and I messed up, and I'm going to try to be better.
I love that. I love that. Never get in the way of the people doing the work. Now, as you started going back a little bit, because a lot of the folks that listen to this podcast are either new entrepreneurs, they're starting a new endeavor, they might be looking at starting a new endeavor, or maybe they're just a business that's looking for ways to scale up and grow. What was kind of one of the, as you think back and you go, man, I wish I would have just known this one thing, and gosh, it would have saved me so much time, so much energy, and so many headaches.
Yeah, I think, so I wish, trying to think of a good answer for you, John, because I do appreciate this platform. The industry is very important. And so I heard this idea that the industry always wins. So if you have a good team in a great industry, the industry wins, and you can have a big company. If you have a phenomenal team in a crappy industry, the industry wins, right? If you were saying, hey, I'm gonna enter the evening newspaper industry, right? Newspapers are going away. Evening newspapers are almost completely gone. And so the industry really matters. And when the company started in 2007, we very much had product market fit. And so this idea of, you need a product and you need a market, or you need a customer. You have to have a customer, and they need to fit. And so product market fit. And Lean Startup is a great book, all about iterating and using prototypes and what they call MVPs, minimum viable products. But in 2007 to 2012, when I started, the other tents on the market were terrible. They were sold through distribution, so just the same guys that sell you, the same guys or gals that sell you the printed coffee mugs, with your company logo, or the t-shirts, or the hats, also maybe had a tent in their catalog, sold by another tent company that sold through distribution. No one was selling direct. And a tent is kind of a weird thing. No one has a tent guy, right? Yeah. You might have an auto body store that you like. You might have a market that you like, but like a tent, it's an expensive purchase. You probably don't already have someone that does it, unless you're a listener of this podcast, in which case I want to be your tent guy. But we very clearly had product market fit. We were selling direct, so we were the experts, right? Someone that's selling coffee mugs and t-shirts and hats, they didn't know the ins and outs of tents, or if you wanted the art to wrap from the roof to the wall, or you wanted a counter, or you wanted a fan, or you wanted an iPad holder, they didn't know that. It was just a page in their catalog. And we were selling direct. We were cutting out the middleman. We were more expensive, but we were selling a higher quality product. And the number one complaint with tents at that time is that they all sucked. They were these like, Easy Up is a common name in the industry. It is also a company. Please don't sue me. I think you have a great company. You pioneered this industry. But there'd be these crappy tents. And my sales message was, why would you ever put $1,000 of custom graphics, John? Why would you ever put your TubPreneurs logo on a $150 tent that comes from Costco, that the first time the wind blows, it's going to turn inside out, and it's going to make you and your brand look crappy? And so we had a better product, and we were selling it direct, and we were the only ones doing it, and we were the only ones advertising online, because Easy Up and Katie Canopy and these other companies weren't selling direct, because they had this, or they weren't selling a lot of direct because they had this big distribution network. And so we had, what one book would call blue ocean. And I wish we had scaled or raised more money or really put fuel to the fire to really try to grab a lot of market share. Mm-hmm. But I was so focused on profitability because I had this buyout option, and I wanted to, if the company was doing well, we made, whatever amount, and the next year we wanted to make more money. And I wish I'd taken a little bit more of like a VC or a startup perspective, where it's like sometimes you just need to grow when you can grow, and then you figure out profitability.
I love it. Grow when you can grow, and then figure out profitability.
But which has certainly bit some of these online, internet companies in the butt, like the shares of Snap, right? Like Snap has been, Snapchat's been valued at, however many billion, and they're down 70% just this year because they're not making money.
Right.
Right. So that it doesn't work all the time. But my message is what I wish I'd really understood is just how important the industry is, and then how important it is, like when you have an opportunity or when you have something that hits, something that resonates in the market. As I would say we did with the COVID tents, our competitors were were weakened. They didn't have supply. We were the only U.S. manufacturer of these tents, and there was a little window of opportunity, and we hit it hard, and we capitalized on a lot of business, and had it's a little bit difficult to say it. Are we still going? Or we're frozen.
We're frozen, but just go ahead.
So audio still good. But in your business career, you're going to have bumps along the road, and things are going to go well, and things are not going to go poorly. But when you figure out something that other people aren't doing, you need to just like focus on that and put everything else on hold and just run through that door that's open, because it won't always be open.
Awesome, I love that. Sorry about that. We had one last glitch. I'm going to have to figure out a different
Hey,
solution.
you know what? For the viewers, I hope you're still with us. But John is doing something that no one else is doing. I'm so relaxed in a hot tub. I've had a little bit of whiskey. I've got a cigar, and he hasn't blinked twice that I've seen. He's just letting me go and share my thoughts with you, and I appreciate it. And one point that I would make is like, you can ask my wife. I do not have everything figured out. You can ask my people that work at TentCraft, and so how we get better is conversations like this, and sharing ideas, and what's it like steel sharpens iron, or what?
Well, iron sharpens iron, right?
Iron sharpens iron,
Yeah.
and like you need to interact with other smart people and learn from each other. And just because I'm the guest today doesn't mean that I won't be watching your podcast tomorrow and learning something from you, because it's all we're all a work in progress, and really it's all about continuous improvement and being a little bit better, and doing your best.
And it's so true. I have to tell you, like, when I started this podcast, part of it was I just wanted to get around successful people. I've known for a long time that you're the average of the 5 people you keep around you.
Totally.
And if I can continue to grow and talk with people who are smarter than me, who are further along in business than me, who really have had some success in their life, it's going to help me as well. And as much as I love the podcast for you, the listener, it speaks to me, and I've had some life changes that have come across because of this podcast and different things with having these great people in the tub. So that is absolutely so true.
Terrible, John. I just realized my shirt had floated up, so I'm hoping there were bubbles. So
it's all good.
The 6-pack abs here, you might have seen the real thing. And sorry guys, it's summer. I've been not living my best life.
I'm doing okay.
Hey, you know what? We're figuring it out. We're trying to be better, and it's all about continuous improvement.
Exactly. Well, Matt, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come over here. I know it probably wasn't too hard of a sell with whiskey and cigars and a hot tub.
True.
But I appreciate it. Guys, I hope that you listen and re-listen to what Matt has to say in this podcast. There's so many knowledge bubbles that you can take and apply right away in your business, and as you're looking to start a business that you can take with you as you go to that venture. Next week, we're going to be having Reed Jensen in the tub. He is the owner of Bulldog's Barbershop.
Awesome.
And it's really actually a pretty cool story of how he got started, buying the business from his dad, and the way that they've grown it to be kind of a powerhouse in the barbershop arena in Traverse City. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Matt, thank you again. Is there any final thoughts you want to leave our visitors with?
John,
our listeners?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you all. I encourage you to come in TentCraft, or check our careers page, or if there's something that you think we could be doing better, like let us know, because that's how we learn. That's how we get better. We're in a little company in a small or medium-sized town, and we really depend on smarter people than us and people with more experience than us telling us what we need to do to get better.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.
Cool. All right. Okay, John. Man, I was talking